still think about that night whenever I hear a car door slam too late. That sickening dread is just stuck in my head. It was Tuesday, maybe 3:15 a.m., and I was about 7 hours into my double shift at the quick stop on I-80, about 40 miles outside Lincoln. The highway is a ghost town that time of night. Just the occasional semi blasting past, shaking the whole building a little. I was completely alone, totally gassed, running on the last dregs of an hour-old cup of dark roast and listening to the same tired playlist. I think In the Club by 50 Cent was playing, which is hilarious looking back because I was definitely not clubbing. I work the graveyard shift because the pay bump is decent, but mostly it's just boring. It's 90% wiping down the coffee bar and 10% selling gas to sleepy truckers who don't even talk. I was behind the counter, scrolling through old texts. My phone was plugged into the wall right under the register. I remember glancing at it and seeing the little lightning bolt next to the icon. Maybe 47% battery. I felt totally safe, which is the weirdest part. The fluorescent lights hummed and made everything look sterile and bright, pushing the darkness outside back. We had big windows, lots of light, and the register was a fortress. Nothing bad ever happens on the brightly lit interstate, right? The quick stop is huge. 2 aisles of chips and candy, 4 aisles of sodas and car accessories. It feels enormous when you're the only person in it. The layout is crucial. The chips aisle runs perpendicular to the counter, and the last section, the one where we keep the bulk import, jerky, and weird sodas, is the only true blind spot for me behind the register. The big Pringles display is perfectly positioned to block that corner. That night, a beat-up, dark blue sedan rolled into the lot. It didn't use the pumps. It parked way out on the edge under the weakest security light near the dumpster enclosure and sat there with the headlights off for 10 minutes. I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone was just taking a break or checking their GPS. Finally, a guy got out. He was wearing a heavy, dark trench coat that looked absurdly heavy and out of place for November in Nebraska. It was cold, sure, but the coat was like something from a 1940s detective movie. He had a baseball cap pulled low, shadowing his face, and his hands were shoved deep into his pockets the entire time. He walked in, his footsteps echoing oddly on the linoleum, like he was the only source of noise in the world. He didn't head for the coffee, the snacks, or the register. He walked straight to the back and stopped at the candy aisle blind spot. For the next 15 minutes, he just stood there, silent, completely still. I could occasionally catch a quick flash of the dark coat or the brim of his hat when he shifted his weight, but mostly it was just an ominous silence from the back of the store. I tried to be normal. I forced myself to finish stocking the fridge. I slammed the energy drink bottles down a little too hard. I clanked the ice scoop, anything to make noise and show I was still paying attention. But the tight, prickly feeling on the back of my neck was getting worse. It wasn't the feeling of being watched. It was the feeling of being studied. I told myself, he's probably waiting for a friend who ran to the restroom. He's shy. He's an old guy who can't make up his mind about a specific kind of chew. I didn't want to be the jumpy clerk who makes a scene. I didn't want to accuse a quiet customer of being weird. I certainly didn't want the confrontation because if I was wrong, that's embarrassing. The politeness trap was huge, and my desire to avoid awkwardness was stronger than my survival instinct. I let him stay there. Finally, the silence became too much to bear. My stomach was churning. I had to break the tension. I forced myself to walk out from behind the counter. My voice sounded shaky even to me. I asked if I could help him find something specific tonight, trying to project a confident customer service smile. He turned slowly. It felt like watching an automaton move. I couldn't make out his face well because of the hat shadow, but his eyes were visible, and they were just flat, empty, unblinking. He finally started walking towards me, and I felt my heart rate triple, pounding like a drum against my ribs. He got to the counter, still empty-handed. He leaned in, his body hovering over the little display of cheap lighters. His voice was low, almost a scratchy, chilling rattle. It was the question he asked that didn't just break the tension, it snapped my reality in half. He wasn't talking about candy or car trouble. He asks, "Does the back door lock from the inside or the outside?" I didn't answer him. I couldn't speak.
My mind didn't even register the words back door at first. My brain was stuck on the fact that only employees knew about the back door. The door is behind the counter, located in a narrow hallway hidden behind a huge stack of paper towels, a rack of mop heads, and a clearly labeled employees only sign. He shouldn't know it exists. He had been watching the store for days. He had been planning. In that instant, the air in the store felt heavy and metallic, like wet concrete. My stomach didn't just drop. It felt like someone had scooped out all my internal organs and replaced them with heavy, aching stones. Every hair on my arms and neck stood up straight. I wasn't scared anymore. I was facing primal terror. He must have seen the dawning horror on my face. His flat look shifted into something truly predatory. He started smiling again, but it was just a slow widening of his mouth, devoid of any genuine feeling. It was a smile of anticipation. He lifted his right hand slightly out of the pocket of the trench coat, and I saw the glint of dark, heavy metal. Not a gun, but something thick and long reflecting the fluorescent light under his sleeve. That was the escalation. He was done pretending to shop. I didn't try to reason. I didn't try to talk. I didn't scream. I just reacted. I pushed off the counter with my hip, wheeled around, and sprinted for my life.
I ducked behind the register. I didn't look up. I knew exactly where it was, the silent alarm button. It's an unlabeled, gray button taped under the corner of the register drawer. I slapped it 3 times, hard, to make sure the signal went through to the police dispatcher. I didn't wait to hear a confirmation beep. I heard his heavy boots thudding on the linoleum as he lunged over the counter. He didn't bother using the little side gate. The manager's office is a small, soundproofed box right behind the coffee brewers. It has a deadbolt, but it's cheap wood. I yanked the door open, thankfully it was unlocked, and dove inside. I slammed the door shut and threw the flimsy deadbolt. The climax. The silence inside the office was immediately terrifying. I was breathing in frantic, shallow gasps. I pressed my back against the door, trying to hold it closed even with the bolt engaged. Then I heard him. He wasn't kicking yet. He was using his full weight, shoving the door violently, trying to break the frame. Thud, thud, thud. The cheap door frame groaned and splintered faintly near the hinges. I could feel the wood vibrate against my spine. I scrambled on my knees to the CCTV monitor bolted high in the corner. I could see the main floor. I watched him. He looked like a frustrated beast. He ripped the knob, rattling it like he was trying to tear the mechanism out. When it didn't open, he backed up 1 step and delivered a heavy, controlled kick right next to the lock. The office door visibly dented in the spot right behind my head. I just huddled there, rocking slightly, watching the clock on the CCTV monitor crawl by. Every second felt like a minute. 5 minutes. The kicks kept coming, less frantic, but more heavy and more deliberate. He was trying to take the door apart methodically. Then, through the soundproofing, I heard it. A distant, faint, but unmistakable whew, whew, whew. Sirens. He heard them too. On the monitor, he stopped mid-kick, his foot suspended in the air. His head snapped toward the front door. He didn't hesitate. He turned and sprinted, not out the front, but towards the back. He kicked over the paper towel stack, ripped the barricade aside, and burst through the delivery door, which rattled furiously as he disappeared into the cold, black night. The aftermath and validation. The state troopers found me about 2 minutes later, still locked in the office, shaking so hard I could barely manage to throw the deadbolt to let them in. They were professional, but you could tell they were spooked by the sheer force of the dent in the doorframe. They searched the whole store and the lot. The blue sedan was gone. They didn't find him, but they did find the damage. I gave them my statement, repeated his question about the back door, and pointed out the blind spot. The officer who took the report kept saying I was lucky and that hitting the silent alarm and securing myself saved my life. I went home and collapsed. I missed 3 days of work. The next day, the quick stop manager, Mr. Peterson, called me. He said the troopers came back that morning to check the security camera footage again. They noticed something I hadn't seen when I was huddled, shaking in the office. It turns out the man in the trench coat wasn't empty-handed when he first vaulted the counter. He had been concealing something long under his coat, and when he lunged for the manager's office door and started his attack, he dropped an item. The police found it on the floor, right where he stood when he started kicking the door. It was a brand new, still in the packaging, 4-inch roll of industrial-strength silver duct tape. The lead detective told Mr. Peterson that people don't usually bring industrial-strength duct tape to a gas station at 3 in the morning unless they plan on leaving without the person working there. That's what haunts me. That's the chilling validation that proves I wasn't just being paranoid about a weird shopper. I was being hunted, and I was seconds away from being dragged out that back door.